It's time for Debrief, TRT World's roundup of top stories from the week.
Trump's helicopters.
So I can't really hear you guys.
The largest swarm of Russian air attacks launched on Ukraine since the war began 3 years ago has killed at least 12 people.
He's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all.
A TRT World crew in Ukraine has survived a Russian drone attack on the city of Dnipro.
Our cameraman Nart rushes towards the strike location, a residential area deep in the heart of the city centre. Nart says what we're all thinking as we lay on the ground, hiding.
So near.
This is what night looks like across Ukraine.
On Sunday, 303 prisoners were swapped in a third day of handovers. More than 1,600 have now been released.
Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz says Western allies have lifted range restrictions on weapons sent to Ukraine.
This is not solely about reach. What it is about really is taking the fight to Moscow's front door.
How many Russian soldiers do we think have been killed?
Oh, that's extremely hard.
It really is difficult, isn't it?
At least 100,000.
A couple of nights now where people were killed in the middle of what you would call a negotiation. I'm very disappointed by that.
Donald Trump is again questioned whether he's being played or manipulated by Vladimir Putin. 2 weeks after Moscow said it would deliver a memorandum of understanding just to use as a basis for peace talks, nothing.
Moscow insists that it is unconstructive to demand those documents to be handed over beforehand.
They are constantly looking for reasons to postpone a format which can bring an end to the war.
Russia has offered to meet in Istanbul next week for the second round of direct talks to end the war in Ukraine.
We think that under President Erdogan's hosting, a meeting in Istanbul with Presidents Trump, President Putin and President Zelensky could be the crowning achievement of the earlier talks.
And people are still dying, because while diplomacy continues, so does the war.
After an 11-week total blockade of the Strip, a tiny amount of assistance has been arriving this week.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a newly formed group getting aid into Gaza, says it's distributed nearly 17,000 boxes of food and nearly 1 million meals in the last few days.
A new aid program for the enclave has started in chaos, showing the desperation of the humanitarian situation, as well as exposing flaws in the American plan.
The UN's chief says only a teaspoon of aid has been allowed in so far.
It's a miracle that we're still alive, because I mean, sometimes I spend 2 or 3 hours, either me or my son, just to go to look for a can of tuna or a can of sardines.
We have a policy of starvation. Did you hear that? You didn't? That's the current fad, the current lie.
They've been facing starvation for weeks and now they've reached breaking point. Scenes of chaos in the centre of Gaza on Wednesday when thousands of starving Palestinians broke into a World Food Programme warehouse in Deir al-Balah.
I fought to get this for my children. Look at me. Palestinian people and Arab countries, look.
Palestinian authorities say these scenes show efforts so far are failing disastrously.
The United Nations has criticised the US-backed model.
I believe it is a waste of resources and a distraction from atrocities.
Meanwhile, Israel continues its shelling across the entire Gaza Strip.
Israel has taken control of over 77% of the besieged Palestinian enclave. And this is how.
Instead of saying goodbye, see you tomorrow, Palestinians now say, see you in heaven.
That new US-led ceasefire proposal that Hamas is considering aims to halt fighting for 60 days.
The deal also stipulates Hamas will release 10 living hostages plus the bodies of 18 detainees on the first and 7th days.
As Netanyahu's assault plows on, the situation in Gaza remains beyond imagination.
Here's the news and briefs, where we bring you even more top stories. Israel's oppressive policies towards the Palestinians are not limited to Gaza. Palestinians in the occupied territories are also facing daily threats. Hundreds of Israelis staged a provocative visit to the Al-Aqsa Mosque on Monday, members of the Knesset among them. In Tulkarim, Israel ordered 106 homes to be demolished in refugee camps. And raids continued in Jenin, Hebron, Nablus and Tubas on Tuesday, killing at least 2 Palestinians. Later in the week, the Israeli government announced its largest expansion plans since 1993, saying it will be establishing 22 more settlements across the occupied West Bank. Such outposts are considered illegal under international law. It's also threatening to annex the whole region if the UK and France recognize a Palestinian state in the coming weeks. But many fear it's already happening, in more ways than one.
The occupied West Bank is facing a major water crisis. Palestinians are denied access to the springs on their land and instead forced to buy water back from Israel in limited quantities and then store it in containers on the roofs of their homes.
We don't have water at all. If I'm lucky, I can get water once a week or once every 10 days. This is the occupation. They control the water. They control everything.
President Trump's battle with Harvard University rages on in the US, and the tide is turning in Harvard's favor. On Thursday, a federal judge extended an order blocking the administration from banning foreign students. Trump had frozen billions of dollars in funding earlier and had cancelled all financial contracts with Harvard. The president believes many Ivy League colleges are anti-Semitic and riddled with, quote, woke ideology.
It's perhaps not surprising that Harvard is being targeted. The Trump administration openly acknowledges that it's involved in a culture war against what it sees as a liberal establishment. And nothing exemplifies that establishment more than America's elite universities.
It's not only the institutions. Students are being directly targeted too. US foreign missions were told to stop scheduling new appointments for student visas on Tuesday, as the State Department works on a detailed plan to vet applicants based on their social media. Over in Europe, finally, some accountability for one of the worst shipwrecks in the Mediterranean. 17 Greek coast guards have been charged over a migrant boat disaster in 2023, where nearly 650 people are believed to have drowned during a voyage from Libya. Survivors say a Coast Guard patrol attempted to tow the ship out of Greece's rescue zone, causing it to capsize. A marine court has charged the captain of the patrol boat with dangerous interference, and 4 other senior officials with exposing people to danger. Only 104 passengers made it out alive from the disaster, and just 82 bodies were recovered from the shipwreck. In the UK, thousands were out on the streets to celebrate Liverpool's Premier League victory on Monday, when a car ran into the crowd, turning celebrations into horror.
And then suddenly the car reversed and there was a loud bang as it connected with the ambulance behind it, and then all of a sudden the car accelerated and shot off through the crowd, and at that point the atmosphere changed so quite drastically. And
4 people, including a child, were trapped under the vehicle. In total, 79 people were injured. UK police quickly ruled out terrorism and said this was an isolated incident. 53-year-old Paul Doyle was charged with 7 offences. Around 1 million fans were out celebrating Liverpool's win in the city centre, watching as a tour bus paraded the team. And now for a taste of our programs.
China, first row, China.
The sweeping tariffs on China and trading partners around the globe, ordered by President Donald Trump in April, have been reinstated for now. Late Thursday, a federal appeals court granted a Trump administration request and paused a lower court ruling that had struck down most of the Trump tariffs a day earlier. The White House slammed the trade court ruling that said Trump had exceeded his authority.
Now that a federal appeals court has stepped in, it gives the Trump administration some time to prepare arguments around a 1970s-era law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and whether the president has the power to unilaterally launch tariffs, a battle the administration says it will take to the Supreme Court, if necessary.
China says the U.S. should stop seeking a trade war.
China urged the U.S. to heed the rational voices of the international community and to completely eliminate its erroneous practice of unilateral imposition of additional tariffs.
The Trump administration has until June 9th to file its arguments.
Now, Germany was the third largest colonial power in Africa after the British and French. German colonial rule in Africa lasted about 30 years. Now, in 1884, modern-day Cameroon and Togo in West Africa was put under what was dubbed a German protection. Now, 2 years later, today's Tanzania and parts of Rwanda and Burundi followed. But it is in Southwest Africa, which is now known as Namibia, that it's remembered for its brutal past. Now, in 1904 to 1908, historians say German officials set up concentration camps, carried out pseudoscientific experiments, and soldiers killed about 65,000 of Herero and 10,000 Nama communities for resisting colonial rule. In 2021, now the German government formally recognized what happened as genocide and pledged to pay the Namibian government more than $1 billion in aid over 30 years to benefit the descendants of the two communities. But representatives have rejected a draft deal that is said to include a formal apology and an extra $56 million.
And over the weekend, Turkey's Fenerbahce conquered Europe's biggest basketball competition, winning the iconic EuroLeague trophy for the second time. The Istanbul Giants beat Monaco 81-70 in Sunday's showdown in Abu Dhabi. In a squad where 4 different players scored in double digits, Nigel Hayes-Davis led the way for Fener, getting 23 points and 9 rebounds, all of which made him the Final Four MVP, as Fener doubled their championship tally in what was their 4th trip to the title decider. Not to mention head coach Sarunas Jasikevičius became the first former champion player to also win as a coach. Fenerbahce had beaten defending champions Panathinaikos in the Friday before and seating the Greek Giants 82-76 in the semis. So the headline for all of that action was again Fenerbahce's victory. Our very own Tala Duman was in Abu Dhabi following the Final Four and caught up with Hayes-Davis after the trophy ceremony.
And it was a big win for the Istanbul side. And I won't go into too much detail because I have the man who led them there, MVP Nigel Hayes-Davis. Nigel, we spoke before the game and talked about how you guys, your mantra was strength in numbers. And this game, again, was an example of that. Can you talk us through the whole process of becoming European champions?
Yeah, it started with, in the summer, the signings that we had, the guys we got all year. Charles talked about one of his biggest things was like, he says all the time, I don't give a who scores the ball. All of you can play, all of you can go in and contribute.